You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 6th of December 2013. Gang rape victim fights to get illegal immigrant rapist deported. Lord Bartier accused of spending £600,000 belonging to charity he helped found. UK doctor still practising after child porn convictions. EU countries offered €6,000 per head to take in refugees. Netherlands, new threats against pig wilders. French lower house votes to find prostitutes' clients. Nick Griffin MEP from the belly of the beast. 2,000 mice dropped on Guam by parachute to kill snakes. White Afrikaner group fears genocide upon Mandela's death. Thought for the day, Asian grooming, why now? And finally, an alien being in sea near Bristol. First of all, a message to the plod who shot the poor little heifer that escaped from a field near Portsmouth on Tuesday. You should be bloody well ashamed of yourself, not firing a tranquiliser dart instead. This poor thing was no danger to any of the 3 schools it was apparently heading for. Strange how when it comes to animals and white lawyers, the plods shoot to kill, but when it comes to black Muslim murderers, caught after the very public act of decapitating a white soldier, they shoot the bastard to wound him. We used to have a highly thought of police force, not the laughing stock we have now. UK news. Gang rape victim fights to get illegal immigrant rapist deported. A woman who was subjected to a terrifying gang rape is fighting to get one of her attackers kicked out of the country. Carrie-Ann Wheatley, who was pinned to a bed, forced to perform sickening sex acts and brutally raped, is scared after being told one of the rapists is being prepared for release from prison. Anouar Ben-Rejab was jailed for 10 years in 2010 for his part in the attack at a Maidenbower flat following a night out in Crawley town centre. Miss Wheatley, 30, receives annual letters from a victim liaison service updating her on Ben-Rejab's situation, and she's just been told he's been moved to an open prison. And despite the length of sentence he was given when jailed, she has been told to expect that he will be released at some point in 2014. Miss Wheatley, who bravely waived her right to anonymity after Ben-Rejab was convicted, is concerned he could use the European Convention on Human Rights to block any move to deport him. World date. That, or just the fact he is a Muslim, could get him financial compensation for his trauma in prison. I'd give him his inhuman rights, okay? Lord Bartier accused of spending £600,000 belonging to charity he helped found. Lord Bartier, who was suspended from the House of Lords following the expenses scandal, has been accused of using more than £600,000 of charity money to fund his own lavish lifestyle. The 81-year-old businessman and former chairman of the Ethnic Minority Foundation has been accused by the charity of using its money to pay for a personal chauffeur, his family's private medical insurance and other inappropriate expenses. It's also alleged that Lord Bartier claimed mileage expenses from the charity for journeys he had already submitted through the parliamentary expenses system. It's alleged between 2009 and 2010 Lord Bartier submitted double claims for mileage on 138 times at a cost of £1,500 to the taxpayer. The allegations were made in a report broadcast on the BBC's Newsnight programme recently. World at 8. It cannot be a coincidence that the term corruption in Asian communities was quickly hidden. Proof of pudding, my friends. UK doctor still practising after child porn convictions. 2 physicians with child porn convictions are among more than 750 physicians with criminal convictions still practising medicine in the UK, the General Medical Council revealed in a Freedom of Information response to The Telegraph. The GMC report revealed that in October this year, 761 doctors with criminal records were considered in good standing. The report said that these doctors cannot be automatically banned from the practising medicine because this might violate their human rights. World at 8. They still have them then. European news. EU countries offered €6,000 per head to take in refugees. The European Commission is proposing to pay EU countries €6,000 for each UN-registered refugee which they agree to resettle. The idea, announced by the European Commission on Wednesday, 4th of December, is part of a package designed to stop people dying on sea crossings and being exploited by human traffickers. It's aimed at the Syria crisis. Over 2 million Syrians are registered refugees, many of them living in overcrowded camps in Jordan, Lebanon and Turkey. The EU resettled 5,000 of them last year. World at 8. I presume this is being used as yet another hammer to push in immigration to Europe and the UK. Most of these Syrians who are not Christians are obviously on the rebel side, so send them back for Assad to deal with. No surrender on immigration should be our stance in the UK. Netherlands. New threats against pig wilders. Researchers from the Israeli-American Security and Intelligence Company intercepted a new threat on an internet forum for jihadists directed towards PVV leader Geert Wilders. The message is a call to murder Wilders in an attack with explosives. The writer of the message calls Wilders a pig and a coward. The message was posted in a response to Wilders' recent call to add a text to the flag of Saudi Arabia that reads that Islam is a lie, Muhammad is a criminal, the Quran is poison. Wilders is a frequent subject of threats on internet forums and through email and social media. Just last Friday he tweeted, "After 9 years, sick souls on the internet still give me the creeps." Since the assassination of Theo van Gogh early November 2004, the PVV leader has lived under police protection. On the party's website, Wilders celebrated the fact, "Since that ominous day 9 years ago, I've been forced to live under police protection. I've lived in barracks, jails and safe houses. The threats continue and have robbed me of my privacy and freedom." World at 8. He'll have to live in France with Marine for protection, won't he? French lower house votes to fine prostitutes' clients. The lower house of the French Parliament, the National Assembly, has approved a law imposing a €1,500 fine on those caught paying for sexual services. The bill is expected to go before the upper house for consideration in early 2014. After the bill's passage, it is expected the French members will go to whores in Germany and Switzerland. To avoid the fines, a luxury brothel is opening in a nearby small town of Saarbrücken in Germany. It will be able to accommodate between 50 and 60 women and more than 100 clients, says its future manager, Michael Bertin. "We expect a large number of French customers due to the proximity to the border and also the legislative context in France," says Bertin. Minister for Women's Rights Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, who has pushed for the reform, argues that prostitution in any form is unacceptable and has said the aim of President François Hollande's socialist government was to suppress the trade altogether. World at 8. Oh dear, France will never be the same again. Trust a socialist government and a Muslim woman. It's obviously cheaper for Muslims to abuse children than visit French whores. Today, instead of welcoming our dear Nick Griffin MEP, I'm afraid he's broken down on the M25. So instead, we have a treat of the cultural nirvana from Imna Kafar.
Nirvana. From watching the telly, you would never comprehend the real situation in this country. We live in a situation approaching nirvana. This is, in Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism, the attainment of enlightenment and the freeing of the spiritual self from attachment to worldly things, ending the cycle of birth and rebirth. However, the truth is quite the opposite. The adverts and posters on both the TV and generally depict a shiny world of new inventions and nice new electronic toys you can buy. Cars, paint and gadgets to keep your house nice and clean and tidy. A wonderful multicultural world where nice white girls marry nice black or Asian guys and they are wildly in love with plenty of money, nice jobs and wonderful holidays. Their children are multiracial, their parents are multicultural and fully in tune with these great concepts and invite us to join them on this utopian adventure. How nice of them. Then we have the mindless balls giving their opinions on morning breakfast shows on any range of topics. These people are completely switched off to any form of reality that does not support their shallow and limited understanding of reality. But they dress nicely, are polite and also PC and multicultural. In effect, they are supposedly how we should all be. They are shining examples to the great unwashed and those who do not share their views because they are supposedly too stupid to understand the big picture as they do. This is never stated, for obvious reasons, as it may offend viewers, but the implications are obviously there. The politicians are looked on with some disdain, but at the same time those showing this disdain share their basic views most of the time, but make a good show in not displaying it. The interviewers know which side their bread is buttered on and make good actors in a political pantomime. The BBC definitively knows which side his bread is buttered on and is the puff pastry of journalism. But everyone should trust Auntie, and most people sadly do, whilst paying through the nose for a pile of horse shit in the form of EastEnders and the rest of the garbage that depicts the so-called reality of working class life. Meanwhile, the working class and now the middle classes are slowly but surely being consigned to penury, ignorance, sloth, unemployment and state Stasi dependency. And now this is being cut. However, never mind, they have EastEnders, Coronation Street, football and all other manner of tosh to keep them amused. The teachers are mostly crap, undereducated, Frankfurt School ideologists who know nothing more than the subjects they have been supposedly taught by other equally clueless twats, and secretly despise the pupils they are teaching. Whilst a significant number of those who teach have no intention of teaching anything. They are simply not interested. The immigrants are mostly not interested also, in particular the Muslims, as they have other fish to fry in terms of crime, Islam, drugs, hip-hop or other crap music, and they know at the end of this particular industrial conveyor belt of hopelessness that there is nothing awaiting them in terms of a job or a future. The same thing applies to increasing numbers of white young people, including those from the middle classes who used to be immune from the vicissitudes of recession due to their educational achievements. These are now devalued scrap. Meanwhile, hordes of filthy, diseased, unwashed, undereducated aliens are welcomed with open arms into the country. This is a country where they can claim all sorts of benefits that they could only dream of in their own flea pit countries, and they know that any refusal by the officials can be challenged as racism, and that they can even claim compensation. How wonderful for them to find a virtual nirvana of stupidity run by a political class that cannot even control its own borders, laws, or them. So some of them set up nice little mosques to train their brats in the arts of jihad, in preparation to take the country away from these stupid kuffar. Well, they may well have a point. The police farce is now helpless, their hands tied up in knots of PC rules of community cohesion and other assorted bullshit that is piled on them from the Frankfurt School clones above them. Even the good ones get to the point of not caring anymore. They're not coppers anymore. They're now social workers and traffic cops, more interested in arresting motorists for driving offences than arresting proper criminals. Even those who are supposed to investigate sexual offences are more interested in arresting or ignoring those reporting them. Our capital city comes under attack from a bunch of anarchists and other scum. Shops looted, buildings burned and people killed, and our police farce are powerless to prevent it. So it spreads all over the country and it will happen again as the police are now being cut. They may be somewhat useless, but it will end up with people taking the law into their own hands if they are not there. Our armed forces are coming home to face a barrage of abuse from a bunch of quasi-terrorists, but whilst over there in Afghanistan, are texted their marching orders and sacked while facing IEDs and fanatical, nutcase, moronic Muslim terrorists. After they've left, they are chucked on a scrap heap and treated like dirt. Our health service is now staffed by undereducated, non-English speaking doctors, nurses and consultants, whilst our trained staff cannot get a job as they're too expensive despite the many thousands of pounds spent in their training. If they are white, then God help them. Our hospitals are filthy, staffed by corrupt management, and people are left to wallow in their own filth and die. Old people are in so-called homes, staffed by indifferent people, once again, mostly non-Indigenous, who treat them like dirt. And they have to sell their houses to pay for this crap, after working all their lives to build up something for themselves and their children. It makes you want to vomit. The country goes to war because some psychopathic Prime Minister and his lackeys think it's a good idea. And now they think it's a good idea to support the Arab Spring that is bringing terrorism closer and closer to us, whilst at the same time destroying the countries they want to bring so-called democracy to. Look at them. They're nothing more than a bunch of contemptible, pathetic, lying bastards. If they think us nationalists are going to take this pile of garbage lying down, or that the British people are that stupid and contemptible, they are making a huge mistake. After the next terrorist attack, or huge implosion in the financial system, or both, they will get a very nasty surprise. It's time we as a nation said, we have had enough, and mean it.
Thank you very much, Imna Kafar. Lovely. World news. 2,000 mice dropped on Guam by parachute to kill snakes. They floated down from the sky Sunday, 2,000 mice, wafting on tiny cardboard parachutes over Andersen Air Force Base in the US territory of Guam. But the rodent commandos didn't know they were on a mission to help eradicate the brown tree snake, an invasive species that has caused millions of dollars in wildlife and commercial losses since it arrived a few decades ago. That's because they were dead and pumped full of painkillers. The unlikely invasion was the fourth and biggest rodent air assault so far, part of an $8 million US programme approved in February to eradicate the snakes and save the exotic native birds that are their snack food. World at 8. Can someone tell me how a dead mouse filled with painkillers is going to kill a snake? Am I missing something here? Painkillers? You need arsenic, don't you? White Afrikaner group fears genocide upon Mandela's death. With Nelson Mandela's death, it is appropriate to revisit a Russia Today article from October. A section of the white population in South Africa is preparing for the worst scenario in case ageing former South African President Nelson Mandela passes away. The National Evacuation Plan over possible genocide was drafted almost a decade ago. Since Mandela was elected South Africa's first black president in 1994, after spending 27 years in prison for actively opposing the segregationist policies of apartheid in the country, Afrikaners say over 3,000 white farmers have been murdered in revenge for the suppression enforced by its own national party. Afrikaners say the government has never shown much desire to investigate these deaths. There are around 3 million Afrikaners across South Africa who are descendants of primarily Northern Europeans who arrived in the country 3 to 4 centuries ago. Last year, South African President Jacob Zuma antagonised Afrikaners when he sang a song referencing revenge against whites in a public sing-along. "You are a Boer, white man, we are going to hit them," Zuma sang with a group. Genocide Watch, an organisation that analyses conditions around the world that could result in mass murder, puts Afrikaners' risks of slaughter at level 6 or preparation stages, one level away from killings. World at 8. This is not a reflection on Mandela, it is a reflection that with his passing, South Africa will more strongly follow the path of Mugabe's Zimbabwe. Do a search and have a read on frontpagemag.com of Nelson Mandela 1918 to 2013, which starts with Mandela began as a terrorist and never turned his back on monsters like Arafat and Castro, whom he considered brothers in arms. Thought for the day: Asian grooming. Why now? Huddled amidst the full-page spreads on the economy and Nigella and the up-and-coming sainthood of Mandela, terrorist supreme, who, if he'd been put in a Nigerian jail, would not have survived 20-odd minutes, the disgusting so-called bringing to justice the soldier accused of killing, which is what soldiers are supposed to do, the murderers of Lee Rigby, who only admit to possessing a firearm but not murder, the floods likened to the ones that did for humankind whilst Noah straddled the waves with all his animals, to the £36,000 swindle on an Asian singles site. There is a small half a column at the bottom of page 45 and is titled thus: Call to tackle rise of Asian child sex gangs. I can hear the groans from down here with this one. There's been a flurry on various websites about Sharia and Asian grooming gangs, and this has been taken up by Detective Chief Superintendent Darren Best after a case at the Teesside Court in which Muslims were convicted of using Facebook and Blackberries for grooming children as young as 13 for sex. Just listen to what this plod says. Child exploitation is not a crime committed by one ethnic minority group. It is fair to say that the biggest offending group when it comes to CSE is white males. However, there does seem to be a worrying trend in relation to the number of cases involving Asian males, and that needs to be addressed. I'm just going to heave. What about you? This realisation of what is right, not, has come after public officials, plods, have been warned to stop tiptoeing around race when tackling child sex gangs. But that didn't stop them over the last 30 years from totally ignoring any reports or statements over years and years of child sexual grooming and abuse in places like Liverpool, Sheffield, Manchester and Birmingham, all heavily enriched Pakistani Bangladeshi communities or ghettos. Or rather, as we must all apparently acknowledge Mandela and his terrible family as the second comings, we must now all refer to those communities as Asian. As you know, I and the British National Party and Nick Griffin have been onto these nasty escapades since 2003. But have the great British public listened? No, it was a problem of the North, so really didn't touch London or the South for many years, and of course it was us being racist. Twaddle, if it hadn't been for us there would have been no TV programmes and the whole subject would have remained buried, as indeed it was for nearly 30 years. And it wasn't until I went to Liverpool that I heard from the horse's mouth that the tales of sexual abuse as it was thought of then, or just plain rape, that abounded in certain non-Muslim communities living side by side with mainly Muslim ghettos nearby, or at least sharing a small or large town and schools. Now, apart from the crime of the police first of all ignoring this crime for donkey's years, we then had the problem of the plods being told not to worry the so-called Asian communities, or rather secretly the Muslim communities, as even then they knew, as we did, it was mainly a Muslim crime. And we still have it, as in that statement, Asian, not Muslim. Even now they are too frightened of reprisals if Muslim homes are raided or inspected, or even their sons, fathers and uncles questioned, which is ridiculous in a small country with an ever-growing Muslim presence, an ever-growing radicalisation and an ever-growing problem with their menfolk and underage girls from non-Muslim families. When will the authorities admit it is a Muslim problem, or rather our problem with a portion of their culture? Put that along with the wall-to-wall mosques, schools, businesses, land and house grabbing and breeding, and sooner or later, but more sooner I believe, our problems with the Muslims will reach a point where even the police cannot ignore it. And that will be despite the cover-ups, the rewording, the rethinking and the apparent concern of the plods for our young, and the odd untrue article in Nationals and the sainthood of Andrew Norfolk, who did what he accused us, the British National Party, of doing, jumping on the race bandwagon and moreover getting pride of place for plagiarism and a good old pat on the back as well. All and everything about this sexual grooming of minors has been written and covered by the British National Party, Pro-Fam and World at 8. This disgusting and ongoing crime against humanity, our humanity, can never be stopped if the religion of most of the perpetrators is not revealed. Very few are named until after their court hearings, because a Muslim name is a Muslim name, and they must be protected even more so than their victims, who are usually called unreliable witnesses. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'd been raped at 12 by a series of older Muslim guys, given a few drugs to muddle me up plus booze, I don't think reliable comes into it. I would think these children need counselling and medical help, not a badgering in the witness box. But it takes anything and everything to do a cover-up for these Muslim bastards, from their culture to their early arranged marriages to not being able to get a job. So they get all the court sympathies whilst the poor kids get zilch, and note, fewer sentenced for rape of a minor, and none of the children or their parents get any sort of financial increments from these courts. One of the prime ways to halt or at least reduce these cases and increase the reportings of such is financial, pure and simple. When these gangs have been tried and found guilty, a separate hearing or a civil hearing should be brought against the men and their families for compensation for the child's damage, both physical and mental. Where do you strike a Muslim? Like the Chinese, in the pocketbook. Very young girls, although starting to think the attention is a laugh, are told from the beginning not to tell their parents or something nasty will happen to them. What is this but sexual blackmail? And blackmail is punishable by hefty fines as well. So to apply the law in its fullest sense is, I believe, one of the answers we need to employ in our soft towards Muslim judicial system. It certainly cannot hurt and will contribute towards the girls' future college fees or something to get them on the right road again. It makes me madder than a wasp swallowed by a bulldog to read that more white men abuse underage girls. It is not true. We, as all countries in Europe, have our white paedophiles and nasties, but this particular insidious cultural form of sexual abuse of minors is very Muslim, very Eastern and very Sharia. Get over it and call a spade plods, or in this case a Muslim, and sod community relations. You should all be thinking of the ones that are never found or named from your list of missing persons from years gone by. Do you really think that all this is new? And finally, glowing alien thingy in the sea. Experts were baffled after video footage emerged of a glowing alien-like creature swimming in the Bristol harbour. Stunned eyewitnesses filmed a mystery luminescent tentacled being which was flashing a variety of colours, floating close to the top of the water. Videos of the strange marine object in the city's historic docks were posted on YouTube and Twitter, with many claiming to have seen an alien. It was a mystery that took the internet by storm, but the Bristol Harbour alien has been exposed by an elaborate stunt to promote a new TV show. Within hours, speculation about the creature's identity reached fever pitch on social media, chat rooms and the message board. But these exclusive pictures show the alien was in fact the work of the team at TV channel Watch, who created the captivating creature. The viral stunt was designed to promote The Happenings, a new magic and illusion TV show from the producers of Derren Brown. This presenter says it's a shame, it really looked good and would have been marvellous if really an alien sea being. Take me to your leader would have been funny, wouldn't it, in the middle of the Bristol Sea? But doable, always doable. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy, safe and dry weekend.